We are your hosts for this afternoon and tomorrow. I'm Will.
I'm Hannah.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Hannah. I'm on the Saturn team, and I'm going to be leading tomorrow when I have had some sleep. So.
And I'm coming from the Bedrock team. Bedrock is a team within Protocol Labs that's been doing a pretty broad range of data transfer. We help build Boost, which is one of the primary markets nodes that storage providers are running for actually storing the data and getting it back. And then we're also thinking about a set of what needs to go into retrieval incentives. IP&I, a pretty broad swath from content routing, data transfer, and then the endpoints that node software that's actually doing that stuff. So we've got a pretty packed agenda. We're going to try and keep talks relatively short so that there's time for discussion after all of them. But let's walk through that just briefly. Very soon, we will have Juan define retrievability and talk through what we should be aiming for as a North Star in terms of getting retrievability integrated into Filecoin. Followed by that, I've got a brief talk about how we more clearly define bands of retrievability and what we need to be thinking about in terms of sort of more concrete mechanisms and what those levels and what we mean when we're talking about retrievability. Kara's going to talk about the reputation working group that exists today and is already doing retrieval measurements in a Phil Plus context and beginning to establish reputations for storage providers. We've got a talk from Miro on Spark, which is sort of the next iteration that gets us to a decentralized measurement platform to be able to have a broader tracking and better understanding of how retrievals are working. Deep is going to talk about how Phil Plus can be leveraged and interact with this problem. So how do we bring retrievals into the Phil Plus context for what the network is incentivizing? And we'll finish off this afternoon with Angelo helping lead a discussion around economics for storage providers and more generally sort of this question of, what are the levers, what are the, the ways that we have flexibility in adding in more retrieval, right? So with retrieval, we've got things like network costs, we'll go into that, and then we need to think about how do we evolve the protocols and the systems we have today to work with that.
So after today, we're gonna have this sort of like big picture overview of what retrieval means and how it might happen. Tomorrow we're gonna get much deeper in the weeds of the actual mechanics of the retrieval and specific case studies of essentially products that are going to need to retrieve content off of Filecoin and how we're going to do it for those. I'm going to start tomorrow with a little introduction to the day, and then Patrick is our retrieval markets. He's been the lead of retrieval markets for a couple of years, so he's going to kind of give us a state of the world of where things are at. Brenda is then going to talk about the Boost software that storage providers run and how it can be used in retrievals. Masi is going to give us a little bit of an introduction to IP&I and how it can be used to discover content and how that can support retrievals. I will talk about a tool called Lassie, which is a tool to retrieve content from content address networks. Reed from the Saturn team will be talking about what it would look like for Saturn to use Filecoin as its sort of like origin server in a CDN context. Marina is going to give us a brief talk about, it's titled Motion, but we now call it the dstore REST API. This is a sort of data onboarding product for archive and backup, and she's going to be talking about the retrieval needs for them. Sunny is going to be talking about the Titan network, which is another sort of retrieval network. And finally, George from the Magmo team is going to give us a talk about state channels. So that's tomorrow.
So a packed agenda. I think we will be trying to leave time for discussions after most of these. And then just through that doorway is the lounge space, as is out that doorway. So if you want to continue any of these discussions, do feel free to continue them out the side doors. This is the same QR code you've probably seen a few times for the overall schedule. There's other stuff going on as well. There is a GitHub discussion for each track as well. So if you have questions around retrieval, if you have some other thing you want to talk about that you didn't see on the schedule, please find that. Please talk to one of us. We can make time. There's free breakout space still. So let's make sure that this has the conversations that you want to have. Make this useful for yourselves. Cool. And with that, I think we're a little bit early, but we can, roughly on time, we can hand it over to Juan to talk about defining Filecoin retrievability.
2 minutes.
In 2 minutes, we'll hand it over to Juan. So